Alright, sorry about that, people. My video got cut off. I didn't even keep track of time. So this is part 2 of my prediction for John Duddy versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I said in January that if John Duddy fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., I thought John Duddy would win the fight. Just because of all the flaws within Chavez Jr.'s game. I believe that John Duddy would win the fight. Because of that, because of how loose, as I mentioned, how loose the defense is, and sometimes Chavez, doesn't really. Sometimes he throws a lot of unnecessary shots compared to Duddy. Duddy does throw some unnecessary shots himself. Both fighters do tend to throw a lot of punches, but I just think that John Duddy at that time could defeat Chavez Jr. So now, June of 2010, 6 months older, not much of a difference. 6 months later, who do I think will win the fight? That's the question, and this fight, as I mentioned, is a big question mark, and it's a big time pick'em fight because you got two fighters who are not on the elite level, have not yet achieved elite status, and I think are both fighters who I believe pretty much, with the amount of fights they both have had, should be on the top level, but they don't. But both fighters really don't have the ability, in my opinion, don't have the boxing ability and the tools at the moment to be on the top level with some of 154 and 160s elite. You have a lot of fighters who are much younger than them, and they are fighting much better opponents, much better opposition than a lot of these guys. They have less fights, and some of these guys are contending for championships, while these guys are very stagnant. And now we'll put them in the ring together, and it's like, who have both these fighters fought that were top contenders that put them on the elite level and that should put them in the ring with Miguel Cotto, or better yet, some of these other prospects like Amar Rosian, or even Joe Green, or Kermit Cintron, some of these guys, or even Manny Pacquiao. Who have these guys faced that will elevate them to elite status and give them the right to call out these top level fighters? Nobody. You can't really say Matt Vanda, Troy Rowland, Luciano Cuello, Billy Lyell, and Yuri Boy Compass are guys who are gonna bring these men up to an elite level and say that they have the right to face these top fighters. So who do I think is gonna win? I'm gonna go with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in this fight. I think Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. should win a close fight. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's actually a robbery. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was that. But I think at this time, I just think Julio Cesar Chavez could win this fight. I think a new corner will benefit him. A better trainer will benefit him, and I just think that being in Texas, that will benefit him. So I'm gonna go with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in this fight by a very close decision. I think this fight could be a shootout. I think it can be because they both throw a lot of punches, but I don't think that Chavez Jr. has the power to take out John Duddy, especially if he couldn't take out Troy Rowland, a punched out fighter who was obviously tired, and standing in front of him, he couldn't knock him out. So I'm gonna go with Chavez Jr., but I think John Duddy will put together a very valiant effort in this fight. So anyway, that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.